he is a CrossFitter at heart, 10-year affiliate owner, owns multiple affiliates, and he has a 240 Fran. Like, he kind of gets that. Like, he's that, right? Then from there, Stanford MBA, and grown a business from a company that had just gone through a recession and lost. It was at a 10th of its previous value, up to be sold to Oracle for $1.2 billion, and managed 400 employees, and then becoming a VP at Oracle, one of the biggest companies in the world. Like so he's got the business side of it. And then he's a cool dude. You listen to him talk, you're like, I could hang out with that dude. Mm-hmm. He passes the car ride test. Mm-hmm. Like, I would love to go on a 4-hour car ride with that guy. You know, I'll sit shotgun, you drive me around, and we'll go to the mountains and go skiing. Yeah. You know, we'll, sick to Richter, buddy, bro. Let's go shred the gnaw on the sicky pow pow. You know, he's a skier. He's a skier,
I don't know
bro.
what you just said right there, but we are here because we know the outcomes in our lives are within our control. That taking absolute ownership of how we eat, sleep, train, think, and connect with each other is how we'll optimize our health and happiness. That chasing excellence is how we grab hold of what is possible. Our mission is to live on the run, always chasing, never stopping. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Chasing Excellence, remote edition, breaking news edition. I don't know if that's true. By the time this gets out, it won't be breaking news so much anymore.
Yeah, the way that the world has been going, breaking news has to be like within a 3-hour span.
Yes.
So,
all right.
News edition.
Yeah, news. Yeah. Okay, so you and I actually haven't talked too much in the last. Really, in the last couple of weeks, you've been busy. Here on the podcast, we've been repurposing some AMAs that you've been doing, partially because they're, as we just alluded to, like, they're as timely as we can possibly get, because you tend to film them on Fridays and then we release them on Mondays. But also because you've been busy behind the scenes of a lot of things happening within the world of CrossFit, CrossFit HQ, and that is what I'm hoping to pick your brain about today. We are recording this on Thursday. Yesterday, CrossFit announced a new owner and a new CEO, and so that's kind of where I think that's where we'll end the conversation. I think we'll do our best to kind of get ourselves up to how we got there, as best as you can tell. And so I wanted to start from the beginning, as the beginning being perhaps the tweet that Greg Glassman sent out 2 weeks ago now. It's happened really fast. Has it been more than 2 weeks?
It feels like it's 2 years.
Yes.
But I think it's about 2 weeks ago. Okay. Maybe, 2 or 3. So Saturday nights ago.
So we'll go with that. We're going to go with let's begin, because I know in one of the AMAs that you did mention that you'd been talking to Greg, and so I'd love to go as close to the tweet as we can. Thoughts? Where do we go? How did we get from where we are from that thing?
Yeah. So the world, we are in a very unique time. Right. So it actually has to start before the tweets, which is COVID. COVID happens. So affiliates are in stress. They have to close down. High 90% in the US of affiliate owners close their doors for months. They're struggling. CrossFitters are having trouble keep maintaining their identity because they're not going to the gym. In the midst of this challenging times, the Black Lives Matter movement starts. George Floyd, his murder goes national, and there's a movement, a really powerful movement, arises and brings a lot of things to light that needed to come to light for a long time. Social injustice, white privilege, racism, inequality in the United States. There's a lot of things that have been sitting in the background unjustly, that have been thrust into the forefront of America's eyes. In the midst of that, potentially in the peak of that, days after Trump kind of clears out protesters to take a picture with the Bible, I think it was like 2 days after that, Greg Glassman posts a tweet that says Floyd 19. The next morning, I wake up to a text message from Matt O'Keefe, who is the president of Loud and Live. He runs Wadapalooza. He's the agent to most of the athletes in our space. And he posts just with a screenshot of it. And my response to him back was, "Oh no." just I could see the writing on the wall of where this was going to go, obviously. So that morning, spent on the phone talking to a lot of different affiliate owners. Julie Fouché, who is a former Games athlete, member of the CrossFit health medical side of it, level 1 seminar staff for a very long time, was one of the first people that reached out. Talked to a lot of the partners in the business from Noble and others, and then was able to talk to the former CMO, the former CEO, and I talked to Greg as well. So I can kind of take the next steps from in the midst of that, after that came out, then it started to snowball pretty quick. And then after that, the next day, it came out just to get everyone full speed, because I think we have to kind of paint the picture here of what this is. It came out that he was on a Zoom call with about a couple dozen or so affiliate owners, where he said, I do not mourn the death of George Floyd. My staff does not mourn the death of George Floyd. Along with that also came out a email response to one of the affiliate owners and the longtime affiliate owners of Rocket CrossFit, named Alyssa, who is a member of the LGBT community. And it was not very tactful. 1 second, Pat.
Yep. You getting a weird message?
Oh. Hey, I had to switch over networks.
Okay. I think we're still good.
What was the last you heard?
I heard the whole thing. You didn't freeze it. You got a little choppy, but I heard the whole thing.
It froze on my side.
Okay.
It was a little choppy?
Yeah, just a little bit. Not bad though. I could tell something was up, but
okay.
Nothing crazy.
Okay. Okay, so
you just finished talking about Alyssa.
Yep. So it comes out that he had a less than tactful response to Alyssa, the owner of CrossFit Rocket, and the CrossFit community is kind of incensed, and there's an uproar along with the public. So there's it's on Forbes, it's on CNN. So the next few days, 1,300 plus affiliates vowed to disaffiliate, and that kind of brings us up to speed in terms of what got us in this position.
Yep. I guess my first question is, what was the purpose of the phone call to Greg, or assuming that you called him and he didn't call you? Was it to understand? Was it to say, what the hell, Greg? Was it to say you need to apologize? Like what was from your perspective, what were you hoping to accomplish?
I sent him a tweet that morning.
A text message
saying, yes, I sent him. I don't know what Ben does not tweet. I've never been on Twitter in my life. So yeah, clearly it wasn't a tweet. I sent him a text message. Thank you. Saying I'm confused.
Yeah.
And to his credit, he called me back. I think within a half hour.
Yep.
And we had a 35-minute conversation, and he explained the email to Alyssa, saying that what was publicized had been wasn't the full, and he also thought that her email to him was threatening. And then he explained the Floyd 19 tweet as well from his perspective, and I'll just relay what he told me, which is there is an organization called the International Health Metrics Evaluation Organization. I might have butchered that a little bit, but it's the IHME. They are the organization that has been prognosticating the effects of the coronavirus worldwide, and in his words, kind of like has thrust the world into a lockdown.
Yep.
He believes that their prognostications and their calculations are incorrect. Greg is a very smart guy, very much an activist, and he's not going to sit by and let that happen. So he's been going back and forth with them for a very long time. He doesn't believe that, this is my interpretation, My interpretation is that Greg doesn't think that the coronavirus is as detrimental as most of the world seems, and most of the policymakers seem to think it is, and that this organization is to blame.
Got it.
This organization then posted a tweet that said, racism is a health issue. His response to that was Floyd 19, essentially saying, you have already caused a global lockdown, pandemic. Now you're inserting yourself into this race discussion. Well done, IHME. Basically, that was his take on that. He was. It was a. I've been a very long time CrossFit advocate. I love the methodology. I love the affiliate model. I love the community. I love what it all stands for. And I've had a good relationship with Greg over the years of mutual respect. And that's what that conversation was. It was of basically mutual respect, where I was trying to hear it from his point of view. And that's kind of what that first conversation was about.
Did you, I mean, I don't think we need to go down the rabbit hole of where he's right, where he's wrong, where cancel culture introduces itself and all that, because I think that is beyond the purview, I think, of what we're hoping to talk about here today. But I wonder, did his explanation make you feel better about or differently or better than that initial gut response when Matt had sent you that tweet? Did the nuance of it at least make it understandable, or was it the case where you hung up and you thought none of that is good enough?
No, the reason when Matt sent me the screenshot of the tweet, the reason I said, oh no, is because my belief is that Greg Glassman is not a racist. He has done nothing through my relationships with him, or his hiring practices or anything else, who he surrounds himself with and the way he talks and acts, that would give me any indication that he is racist in any sense. I believe that there is, he might not be the most sensitive person, and this is my interpretation. And other words that have been used to describe him as of late is tone deaf, kind of like not recognizing where the world is in terms of sensitivity. And that's been his thing all along. It's like, I'm going to do my thing. And the conversation I had with him basically helped solidify those two things. I still don't think Greg is a racist. I really don't. I have no reason to think he is. I know some of the amazing things he has done, from building, he's built 22 schools in Africa. He's building gyms that people can go to for free in inner cities across America. I mean, and he doesn't want anyone to know this stuff. So sorry, Greg, I'm busting your bubble, but you've done a lot of good and he just doesn't want it. People are complaining to the social media person about racism in CrossFit HQ. And what people don't know is they're complaining to a black man. There's a black man responding to those things saying you are a racist. He has never done anything and this is not a Greg Glassman defense podcast. It's also not a Greg Glassman bashing podcast. He has done a lot of positive things. But I think that there is everyone has faults, and his faults are being exposed. And his faults might have more to do with insensitivity. And this is the racism issue that we're talking about here. Insensitivities and tone deafness more so than inequality practices.
Despite that, after having talked to him, you still decided at CrossFit New England or CFNE that the right move for you was to disaffiliate, and we can get into what that means at this point. But at that time, it was to disaffiliate. So clearly, or maybe not clearly, what about like those two things seem slightly opposed to me. The deeper understanding of what was happening, knowing Greg as deeply as you do, and yet still making the decision you did. Is there a tension there that is worth talking about?
Yeah, I don't want to make it look like as deeply as you said, as deeply as I do. I don't know him that well.
True. No,
I know him through 15-minute conversations, maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah, for 15 years or whatever.
Over an 11-year period.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of the way that stems out. I see him at the CrossFit Games. I see him at affiliate gatherings or something else.
Yep.
Or when I was working on level 1 seminar staff. The reason we disaffiliated was what CrossFit represented. And Greg, it doesn't matter to me what his personal beliefs are. The organization in the public's view now represented something that was not in line with my values, my principles, or my moral compass. And that's what I could not align with. Even if I was going to be the biggest backer and go through the fire with Greg, I would not do that because I didn't see him as the right guy to lead this community going forward because of his insensitivities. And that was essentially enough to tip over. It was the
last straw. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That was it. And I couldn't essentially kind of like continue to allow him to dictate what I represented.
Yeah.
And I have the decision is incredibly it's simple for me. Incredibly simple decision. Like, it's kind of the same decision of like, should I pay my employees through the COVID crisis? Incredibly easy decision.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't say easy. Simple decision. There was no debate back and forth. It's like, what is the alternative? But obviously the actions are really hard. It was gut wrenching. It was like tearing my heart out. This is like my identity. It's what the community I've been a part of for the last 12 years. It's what all of my 400 members describe themselves as. I am a CrossFitter. It is something that I love. Everything that CrossFit represents outside of that: hard work, community, doing the right things, not taking shortcuts, humility, the willingness to endure some short-term pain for long-term gain, connectedness, positivity. I loved everything that CrossFit stands for. I love the methodology. I love, eat meat, vegetables, nuts, seed, some fruit, little starch, no sugar, keeping intake levels that which support exercise but not body fat. I love training the major movements. I love the elegance of 21-15-9 and AMRAPs and the big compound movements of thrusters, clean jerks, pull-ups, deadlifts, combining that with gymnastics and running in one workout to get this neuroendocrine response that is just like, I love the definition of fitness. I love the definition of CrossFit for being constantly varied functional movements performed at high intensity. I love the results. I love the way that the community has come together during this time. I love the way the community was in 2005 when I found this thing, when I used to drive 2 hours to train with people. I love the certification process. I think it's the most superior certification process in the world for fitness trainers by a magnitude of 10. And I have the next highest one, which is the CSCS, and it can't hold a candle. It's not even close to being a level 4 trainer in the CrossFit world.
Yeah.
Everything that CrossFit has created is amazing, with kind of the exception of this, even the games included in that. Yeah. I built my career around the CrossFit Games, so I didn't want to make it look like I was purposely eliminating that one. I love everything about that, with the exception of kind of this swing of perception of what CrossFit is now. And that's enough. But believe it or not, that is enough. That simple values thing is enough for me to say, thanks, but no thanks. I'd rather be on my own island.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there was something very, first of all, I think that we just lived through 2 weeks of incredible complexity and nuance and context, and at the same time, feeling as though most people didn't know the context, didn't understand the nuance, didn't want to understand the nuance. And so I bring that up to say, or to ask, one of the things that I noticed when people of your caliber started standing up and saying, I can't stand with CrossFit at this time in this way. What a lot of people I don't think understand, or at least can't understand maybe, is that, like you said before, it was a last straw more than it was. We all woke up one day and suddenly we believed something 180 degrees different than we did the day before. And I wonder if you can't speak to that, because I think it's something that in the culture that we're in the speed at which it moves, where everything's on Instagram or Twitter, that kind of context and complexity can get lost. But the truth of the matter is, for people like you or Chris Spieler or Froning, this wasn't the first time, and I don't want to speak for you or any of them, certainly, but I've been around as long as you have. This wasn't the first time we woke up to something that CrossFit HQ did or said, or that Greg Glassman did or said, that made it harder to stand up and say, I believe in CrossFit and that's part of who I am. And I guess the question is how much of the history of this kind of leadership led you to a place where you could make the decision that you did, versus, again, at making a decision what it looks like, which is that you made a decision on a tweet? Yeah.
So it certainly was not based off the tweet, because, believe it or not, the tweet I actually don't think was, I think it was misinterpreted, as I kind of have alluded to. It was insensitive and tone deaf, but it was a knock at that organization, which he believes is off base and hurting the world. But even in that week leading up to the tweet, there wasn't a single incident. Mm-hmm. There was also the Zoom call where he's saying, my staff does not mourn the death of George Floyd. Like that, the tone deafness there and the lack of leadership and awareness of what's happening in the world, it's a hard time. I have a hard time getting past.
Yep, agreed.
And then the insensitivity, regardless of your personal battles that you've had with this affiliate owner from Rocket CrossFit, you don't have, as a leader, you don't get to wage your own personal battles. Mm-hmm. You are forfeiting your right to speak solely on your own behalf. You represent more than yourself, and you have to realize your words carry weight. I've called this before, it's essentially like it's a magnifying glass, it's the microphone, and fire. It's like the superpowers of a leader.
Yep.
What you do is going to be seen by so many people. There's a magnifying glass on you. You have to then control yourself and be way more calculated than you would be otherwise. A 4-year-old can do whatever they want and act on impulse. A leader cannot. That is the price of leadership. They also have a megaphone, so what you say gets heard by 20 times more people. Your words must be calculated and thought out. That is the price of leadership. You are forfeiting your own ability to vent and pick fights and do what you want to do. You now represent more than that. And then there's another thing which is called fire. And fire is, you have to realize the power you have through your words and your actions. And that fire, it's amazing as a leader because it can warm people.
Yep.
It can bring people to gather around a campfire to create community. It can inspire and guide the way, but it can also burn. It can burn other people and it can burn yourself. So the magnifying glass, the megaphone, and the fire, I think, are not understood by some leaders. And because of that, they destroy things. So the race thing is, we have to be really, it's difficult to pinpoint. But the leadership thing to me is not. And that is very evident when it's there and when it's not. And over the years, what we've seen is Greg Glassman, through his amazing methodology, through his orative, he's such a great orator, such a great presenter. You could listen to him forever. He galvanized in a community and essentially started a revolution, which I was I was right on his heels. I want to follow him everywhere he went. But I think what's been exposed over the last little bit is the leadership component, unfortunately.
I want to get to kind of the next step of these last few weeks, but I'm curious because we are talking about it. You're a person who puts legacy right up there in the list of values that are most important to you. I'm curious what you think Greg's legacy will be, given all of the things you just said, given all of the things that we've all, many of us built our lives around. Where do you think it stands? And it's probably too early to really know, but your gut sense of, did these last 2 weeks genuinely tarnish his legacy or not? Or should they have? I'm just kind of a sense from you on that.
So I think there's a lot. We're still too early to know that. There's still a lot that has to be. I think that's still going to come out of the woodwork. So I think we kind of have to see how
that's true.
How everything falls. So what we have to do is kind of work with what we have right now in front of us.
Yeah. So
assuming that this is Greg Glassman rides off into the sunset and trades some new competitive or new creative endeavor, and CrossFit is has a renaissance, and it now has another explosion that it's seen for a 5-year explosion like it saw from 2010 to 2015, and we go to 25,000 affiliates, and people are waving the flag and super proud. I think America loves to forgive, and America loves a comeback story. Mm-hmm. And I don't think his legacy is going to be tarnished. That's standing as of right now today.
Yeah.
Because as of right now today, there's the Floyd 19 tweet, which people don't seem to understand. A lot of people think that it's an overreaction in the first place.
Yep.
And there's been some allegations of other stuff, but they're just that. So nothing else has been founded. So as of right now, I think that his legacy is that he goes down as the guy that revolutionized the fitness industry and was insensitive.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on from those conversations to your decision to disaffiliate, somewhere in that mix there, Greg did resign, and Dave Castro was named the CEO. I imagine, because you certainly didn't stand up and say that fixed it, that was not a satisfactory solution to you. Did you talk to Greg during those few days where that seemed to be what the solution was, or do you get the sense that they knew relatively immediately that was not going to quell the demand for actual change?
No, so I did not talk to Greg. I talked to Greg the Sunday morning after the tweet, and the Monday, the next morning, when I called to tell, I think it was Monday, where I called to tell him I was disaffiliating. Yep. And his response was that he said he understood.
Yep.
When Greg named Castro as the CEO, Castro called me to let me know. I said, congratulations. And he said, something along the lines of like, we're going to fix this. Greg has stepped down. We're going to unite the community and move forward. And then we agreed that there would be some space before I could make a decision.
Yep.
Later on that day, I asked if him stepping down meant that he was stepping away from the company, or if he was still the owner. Castro responded that he was still the owner. And I said, I will not be reaffiliating if Greg is still the owner of the company.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's roughly when, rightfully so, when things started to get a little bit quieter on social media, on, Morning Chalk Up stopped having 14 news, breaking news, updates a day. And when people,
and I think the big reason for that is because a lot of people saw that the issue had been resolved.
Yeah.
I think because we're kind of close to it, we knew that Greg was still behind the scenes, probably. I don't know this for sure, but my assumption was that Greg was, there was other CEOs of CrossFit in the past.
Yes.
Greg still pulled all the strength because he was the 100% owner.
Yep.
So Castro, being the new CEO, in my eyes and most of the eyes of most of the tenured affiliate owners, didn't see really much of a change at the top. Mm-hmm. It really has opened my eyes a little bit because you've seen like people be fired for things like the Me Too movement.
Yep.
And you're kind of like, okay, it's problem solved, but yet no one really digs in the next level. Mm-hmm. And, I would talk to, people that are on the fringe of the space, and they'd be like, why are you still disaffiliating? Like, the problem's solved. And I think what Greg did was a very strategic move that bought him a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And it's the thing that, Greg's a smart guy, and he's playing chess. Mm-hmm. He knew that that would buy him probably a week, because people would assume that retirement means gone.
Right. Okay, so when people would ask me when things started to get a little bit quieter, and he did step down, and David, when people would ask me kind of what I thought was gonna happen or was happening, my general response is that my guess was that there were a lot of conversations happening between people who have a lot of influence in the community, and they just weren't happening publicly. Mm-hmm. Turns out I was right, of course. And so,
of course you were right.
Of course, I was, only because we know what happened, not because I'm prescient in any way. But you were part of these conversations, and that's kind of where I want to dive into next. What did those, and I don't know how long it was, a week, 2 weeks maybe, what did those couple weeks look like, as best as you can tell us, you want to tell us, as best as you were able to see? What were the conversations happening? Were they cohesive? Were there 1,000 different conversations happening? Like, just a general sense of maybe what was happening behind the scenes that might allow us to get a little bit of insight into the decisions that ultimately were made.
Yeah, I don't think there were thousands of conversations taking place, but I do believe that there were hundreds. Yeah, because I was a part of 50 plus.
Yeah.
So there's a few things that were happening. There's kind of the three legs of there's probably four legs of the CrossFit stool, but there's really three that are revenue generating.
Yep.
There's the CrossFit Games, there's the CrossFit affiliates, and then there's the seminar staff.
Yep.
Each of those kind of came together, which is, this community is, as cool as we all think it is, I'm here to tell everybody, this community is amazing. You think about what happened from 2 weeks ago, Floyd 19, to today. There's a new owner and CEO of the organization because of us.
Yep.
That's like, this community is, I don't think that happens very often.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So each one of those kind of rallied. Seminar staff got together. They kind of made their stance be known of what they wanted to have happen. The games athletes got together. They had conversations, which is really cool. Katrin lives with me, so I know that I saw the calls that she was on.
Yep.
There was dozens of 3-hour plus calls with their 60 games athlete, with 50 plus athletes each time. Mm-hmm. The attendance was incredible. Everyone voicing their opinion, passionate debate. It was really encouraging and exciting to watch.
Mm-hmm.
On my side, there was affiliates were getting together as well. So I was in conversations with affiliate owners, and what we were trying to do was to save CrossFit. We all love this thing. We do not want it to go away. And I use the word save, like that's, we were trying to keep CrossFit the way it was.
Yep.
So what we were trying to do was position and a way that we could get the affiliates to buy CrossFit. We thought about a whole bunch of different ways, either getting some a financial sponsorship, either through private equity, family money, individual investors, or the affiliates themselves. Probably need some bridge capital because it would take a while to get there.
Yep.
But we were exploring a bunch of different models and a way to get the affiliates to buy back CrossFit.
Yep.
And they were really positive, great conversations. But I will say, I think that's, fast forward a little bit, and we can dig into this a little bit more if you want to. But the where we are right now with Eric Rosa of CrossFit Sanitas, as the owner, I actually believe is best case scenario. I really believe that. If let's say hypothetically I was to buy CrossFit.
Yep.
I do not have the skill set to run CrossFit. I don't have the capacity. I don't have the desire. I want to stay in my suburban home and kind of with the lifestyle I have. I do not want that. I don't want that in any level. So if that was to happen, we would hire someone just like Eric.
Yeah.
Like literally, we would probably end up hiring Eric. So this is like best case scenario in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've talked a lot about get it, want it, the capacity to do it, or have, right?
Yeah.
Similar to
and
that.
I don't GWC that role in any form or fashion.
Yeah. Did you, though, were you part of conversations in which you would have bought CrossFit in some way, shape, or form, regardless of whether or not you would be moving out to Santa Cruz or not? Was that part of, at least on some level in your mind, a solution that you were driving towards?
I didn't want this to go to an outsider, right? Which is everyone's biggest fear. It's been instilled in us from, very, very early on, with the idea of pursue excellence, not clients.
Yep.
Don't chase dollar signs. Profit is unknowable. Excellence is known to all. So you don't try and chase profit, you try and chase excellence. Like Greg has instilled in us from day one. Then there was the potential hostile takeover of Anthos Capital in 2012 when he separated from his wife, Lauren, and there was this venture capital company that was going to come in and potentially really change the entire model. So it's kind of been ingrained in us, like all of the offspring of CrossFit, to like fear this thing. And I fear it.
Yeah.
My biggest fear was that this was going to go to somebody that was going to try to monetize it, blow it up, do it not in the way that we all became a part of the same reason we wanted to be a part of this thing. So I was very invested in making sure that, in doing everything I could to know that so that I could then be proud of my efforts. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like what we talk about with the games athletes. I don't know, I can't control the outcome, but I want to make sure I'm doing everything I can so that I feel like I did my best to try to hold on to what we love.
Yep.
And that involved, talking to the games athletes to see if we could kind of figure out a way for them to buy it, talking to the affiliates, see if there's a way that they could buy it. I secured money so that if neither one of those worked out, that I could present offers. I reached out to Greg a few times, asking if we could chat about it.
Yep.
And those calls went unanswered.
Got it. I'm sure he was
I want to put out there again, like is not my first choice. Yeah. Like I would have done it to bridge the gap, to have someone else come in and run it. We created a board, so it wouldn't have been me.
Yep.
So I had, we created all this, we would create a board of directors, a company that size, probably like 5 to 7 seats. Yep. It would have involved people from each of the branches of what you already named, seminar staff, represented from seminar staff, from the affiliates, from the games, and also from the health side, which is the fourth side.
Yep.
It would have also been a little bit affiliate heavy. From there would have been advisory boards, all representing each of those domains. Each of the boards would have been a diverse and inclusive selection, both gender and race, but also regionally around the world, and age of affiliates. So there's representation across all of them. But like I created all this stuff, and I realized Eric's going to do a better job. Like he's going to do a much better job. I'm sure a lot's going to come out about Eric, but the little bit that I've researched about him is he's a business stud. And the way I call a business stud is a guy that like gets kind of like a few different factors. The first one is how to create and the most important one is the culture aspect, right? He knows how to like create a place where people love coming to work. And his Datalogix was one of the top 100 places in America to work. There's a platform, I think it's an app where you can kind of rate bosses. Essentially, it's kind of like Yelp for bosses.
Is it Glassdoor?
He has a 90%. I don't know. I can't.
I think that's workplace. I don't know if that's bosses.
He has a 90% approval rating. Like, I mean, he's like, he's been there and he's done it. He's scaled companies up through the troubled times, made them massively successful while also building the culture into something so much better than it was. He's got the kind of the whole thing. He's got the three pillars we'd be looking for. He is a CrossFitter at heart, 10-year affiliate owner, owns multiple affiliates, and he has a 240 Fran. Like he kind of gets that. Like, he's that, right? Then from there, Stanford MBA, and grown a business from a company that had just gone through a recession and lost. It was at 1/10 of its previous value, up to be sold to Oracle for $1.2 billion, and managed 400 employees, and then becoming a VP at Oracle, one of the biggest companies in the world. Like so, he's got the business side of it, and then he's a cool dude. You listen to him talk, you're like, I could hang out with that dude. He passes the car ride test. Like I would love to go on a 4-hour car ride with that guy. I'll sit shotgun, you drive me around, and we'll go to the mountains and go skiing. We'll, sick to Richter, buddy, bro. Let's go shred the gnaw on the sicky pow pow. He's a skier. He's a skier. I don't know what
you just said right there, but
it's skier lingo. If you've lived in Tahoe before, you can.
That does lead to the obvious question, which is when it was did you know that this was happening before it was announced, or did you learn like the rest of us on Instagram?
Nope, I learned it just like everybody else did.
Then follow up. It's only been a few days, but have you had a chance to talk to him? Is that in the works? Do you imagine that's happening soon?
Yep. So I sent him an email just congratulating him, and he responded back. Very eager to talk, and I hope to talk to him today or tomorrow. I would actually love to spend time with him. So I would love to fly out to Boulder and hang out with him for a couple of days.
Yeah. I want to get to maybe before we wrap up your sense of what could or should come next, but I don't want to skip because you mentioned it, and I know it's a topic that still has more question marks than it doesn't. But there have been allegations of a pretty toxic work culture at CrossFit HQ during Greg's tenure there. You mentioned that Eric is, if nothing else, known for building a good culture, a strong culture, and I wonder. How do you think? I don't really even know what the question is, other than I want to make sure we don't skip over that, because it feels to me to be the most, honestly, to me, it feels like the most important thing that's come out of this. And it's also the thing that hasn't been resolved yet. And I wonder what your thoughts are on what we need to do, maybe going forward or looking back to, to make up for, to fix what seems to be again, allegations of a pretty shitty culture.
Yeah, I think this is so to start with that. It's a big piece of this thing.
Yeah,
it's a massive piece of this thing. We cannot be a part of an organization that stands for anything less than what this community is. And this community is about hard work. It is about being humble. It is about being inclusive. Let me back up a little bit. Here's when I think that a lot of people fell in love with CrossFit for the same reasons I did, which is in the beginning, when you first found it, It was the thrusters and the pull-ups. It was the AMRAPs. It was the methodology. It was the nutrition. That was the hook, right? That's what got you in.
Yep.
But really, really quickly, the magic of it was that when you're finishing up your round of 15 of Fran and going into your round of 9, there's this purity to what we're doing. And when you're watching someone do that, there's just this amazingness that, like, everything else, all your other worries, whether it's socioeconomic, whether it's racial, whether it's relationships you have in your life, whether it's issues you've had with your boss, whether it's your screaming kids at home, all of that melts away, and you just want to cheer somebody on because you know that they're giving it their all. And the only thing that people are judged on inside of the box is not where you come from, how much money you make, or the color of your skin. The only thing that you are judged on is how hard are you willing to work. You're not even judged on your ability. People love watching the last place finisher give everything they have because they know that that's what garners the most respect. It is what the world is supposed to be, where you are judged on your character and nothing else. What I realized is there would be people join the gym and it would be 6 months to a year before I even knew what they did for a living, because it doesn't even matter. That doesn't matter. What matters is, are you willing to put out and give it your all? What's your character? And that's what we should be judging people on all the time. And that's what I fell in love with. And that's what's kept me so motivated to be affiliate over the last 12 years. It's the purity of this thing. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a lot of healing that needs to take place in the CrossFit space. We've been hurt. We've been for a moment here, we don't know what we represent. Mm-hmm. And that hurts. And we want to get back to the pure aspect of this thing. I am cautiously, as much as I just praised Eric, I think he is the right guy. But we are not reaffiliating just yet because the deal has not been inked. Yep. And a lot of things can happen. So I am very hopeful. I am cautiously but extremely optimistic. And I believe with the right leadership in place, we are going to see a CrossFit renaissance, much like we saw in 2010 through 2015, where affiliates essentially tripled. I think we could see something similar to that with the right focus of the community. And I'm really excited again, cautiously, but extremely excited about what this next chapter holds for all of us.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap up. But I think maybe next time we get together and talk, I'd love to get a sense of your vision of what could happen, how that renaissance could come about. And I think that's a longer conversation that I don't want to rush through this week. So I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you so much to everybody who's reached out. Thank you so much to everybody who's listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. Until then, stay well. You can get every episode of Chasing Excellence wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Until next time, thank you for listening.